Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Sam. It's good to see you all. I'm glad you're back, and I hope your week went well. And I do hope that your day will even be better now that we've got this beautiful weather. And I'm looking forward to sharing myself with the weather later on. And I want to review a little bit. I want to welcome the folks who were not here last week, and we had some openings, and they are here now. I want to welcome you. Thank you for being here, and just spend about 5 minutes maybe on reviewing what we discussed last week. We talked about the blues being the foundation of jazz, and that the blues actually originated in Africa, but it was in the form of one chord. If you would put it, if you could put it like that, it's a chord. And but the 12 bar form that is expressed today is something that happened in this country. And the first person to write a 12 bar blues was W.C. Handy, who wrote St. Louis Blues. And from that point on, the 12 bar blues became something that was standard and is still standard today. There are still other forms of the blues. I've even written a song myself that has, it's a 16, 40 bar blues actually. It has 16 bars of blues, and then it has, I'm sorry, it has 12 bars of blues, so it's 24 plus the 8, it's 32 bar blues. It's got 12 bars of blues, and then it's got 8 bars of bridge, which is very rare for blues. And before the class is over, I'll play it for you. And is everyone hearing me all right? Okay, good. And so uh, I now want to deal with the elements of jazz, and those elements being um, improvisation, still coming out of the blues, improvisation, and scat singing, and trading fours, and call and response. And so basically, this is what I call the art of listening to jazz. How to listen to jazz to understand what it is you're listening to. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to understand music, but you will be able to understand what the form of the song is that you're listening to, and understand if a song is in 4 beats to a measure, 3 beats to a measure, 2 beats to a measure, 5 beats to a measure. There's all kinds of different combinations of beats. And also you will be able to understand the form of a song. And so let's start where we left off with the blues. And here we're going to play a field holler or a work song. And please note that this blues is a 1 bar blues. It is not the standard 12 bar blues. And so listening to this, you're going to hear the call and the response. I ain't all that's leaving, but I wanna lie down. Oh, what got the matter, baby? Now that was a field holler. It's also referred to as a work song, meaning that Africans who were brought over here for purposes of slavery had to work in the fields. And in so doing, they did what they did in Africa. When they did work, they would sing. And in singing, they got this rhythm going. And this rhythm helped them to get their work done collectively. as you could hear the beat of the, I don't know if it was chains or what it was, but it sounded like metal against something. But that was the beat, that was the rhythm, that was the pulse. And so that made it easier to get the work done and to also get it done quicker. And the day would go by quicker. And as you noticed in the lyric, it was, when things, when the sun goes down, things are going to be better. That really meant when the sun goes down, we're finished. But it is said that the African slaves worked from sunup to can't see at night. So now I want to go to our next example. This is a progression, meaning that this is where this came, this idea of the work song you hear now in modern jazz. So now I want you to think about music that is played in a way in jazz that also incorporates this style. And maybe some of you have heard about Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Art Blakey, Art Blakey and excuse me for that. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers was a band led by Art Blakey, who was the drummer. And Art Blakey had a way of orchestrating the music in a way that was orchestral. And he had a way of also going back to pull into the music the idea of the Africanisms that were apparent and were brought over from Africa. Now the name of this song is called Moanin'. Moanin' meaning you're moaning. And it's got the same vibe to it as the work song that you just heard. And you will notice also that it is a blues. It is a 12-bar blues. The other instrumentalists who are playing, all of these gentlemen are no longer with us. And the song was written by Bobby Timmons, the pianist. That band, I made an incorrect statement. All are gone except the tenor saxophone player, who is Benny Golson. Benny Golson is now 91 years old, and he's still playing. I happened to be with him. Matter of fact, he was at Peabody a couple years ago. He came to Peabody to do a master class. He was appearing at a club near Peabody. And so that was Jimmy Merritt on bass and Lee Morgan on trumpet. Lee Morgan was only 19 years old at the time. And Bobby Timmons, of course, on piano, and Art Blakey, the band leader, on drums. So you could hear the call and response is what we refer to it as, call and response. The melody, dee da da dee 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 da da, that's the call. Dee da, that's the response. Now, when you hear this song, that's the idea of call and response. But call and response goes on throughout the music when you hear it played. And so you can expect that sometimes if you're listening to jazz and you're listening to the soloist, one of the horn players or guitar player, and the rhythm section is supporting that soloist, the soloist may play a phrase and take a breath, and while he's playing that phrase, there is an answer or response from the rhythm section or someone in the rhythm section, usually the piano player or the bass or the drummer, and the drummer sometimes and the bass player and the piano player will respond together. And so that idea is called call and response. Call and response. Now, there's another um, element in this music that I want you to hear. And let me take this off here. Scat singing is the utilization of nonsensical vocabulary, a nonsensical vocabulary that a singer uses to accentuate what they hear melodic instruments do, like horns, piano, guitar. And in so doing, let me get this back up here. In so doing, it causes a leap in the music. And here it says, scat singing, in vocal jazz, scat singing is vocal improvisation with wordless vocables, nonsense syllables, or without words at all. Scat singing is a difficult technique that requires singers with the ability to sing improvised melodies and rhythms using the voice as an instrument rather than a speaking medium. And so I'm going to play something for you. And I'm sure you've heard of Ella Fitzgerald. And I want you to know that there's a story that goes along with this. Uh, Ella Fitzgerald, uh, I got a call one night and I was asked if I would like to play with Ella Fitzgerald. And I said, sure, I would. He said, well, we need you to be at the concert place in a half hour. That was 7 o'clock. I needed to be there by 7:30. I needed to be there in a half hour. And so I got myself ready and I got to the theater. And the funny thing that happened, the funny thing that happened, the funny thing that happened is that when I got there, Tommy Flanagan was the pianist, and he gave me a book as thick as he gave me a book as thick as a phone book, this thick with music. And at the time I was young, I was in my 20s. I was a very poor reader, sight reader. I could read music, but I couldn't read music so fast that I could look at a chart and just sight read it. So I panicked. I said, "Oh my goodness, here I am in this place and I can't read these." So I started looking through the music and I just sweated bricks. Finally, he came to me with a list of songs that Ella Fitzgerald was going to play. And he told me, he said, listen, the first song is not here in the book. He said, so I'll sing you, we're going to play an intro. And the intro, and I remember the intro, he said, this is the intro. He said, after we play that, we're into the song. And he says, the outro will be the same as the intro. So at the end of the song, we'll play the same figure. That's the end of the song. He gave me the list of songs that we were to play. my angels were with me because when I was 12 years old, this album, Ella in Berlin, is an album that I ordered from the Columbia Music Club. And I had memorized I knew all the music. I did not need the charts. I knew all the music. So I want you to listen to this because Ella has a very good time with the audience and with herself on this. And she even makes up her own lyrics after a while. But I want you to, if you've heard this before, then you're going to enjoy it again. If you've never heard this before, think in terms of this. Ella had perfect pitch. And she, even though she had perfect pitch, she would put her hand to her ear so she could hear her inner voice, just so that she could hear it. And she could sing what a horn could play. Here we go. Touch the stars, how high the moon, just reach up to Mars, though the words may be wrong to the song. We're asking a high, 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 high as the moon. Ooh, beauty, 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 beauty. I hope you enjoy that because that was an exciting rendition of How High the Moon, and she did it like that every night. And she always improvised, and that's one of the things that we have to take into consideration with this music is that the most important aspect of it is improvisation, and sometimes we don't know that it's going to come out when it comes out. It just happens. As long as it's in the form, as long as everyone in the band can hear where it's going, it goes somewhere, and it's it just happens every night. It never happens the same. This song is called Heebie Jeebies, and this is the first time ever recorded scat singing. And the reason why Louis started scat singing on this piece was because the music that he was playing was on a music stand and fell off the stand. So he started improvising with scat singing. Now it is said that he was not the first person to develop that there were other people doing it. However, he was the first person that recorded it. And it's an interesting song. You may have even heard it before. But notice when he starts to scat, and he does like Ella, he has a good time with the music. He has a good time with playing the music and having fun, with this. He has a good time playing with the music. So they solo first, and then he sings. And let me share this with you first. Wouldn't it be nice for me to share this first? Gosh. You all get me so excited with this music. I get so excited. Yes, you will notice the next time that you're able to hear New Orleans music and the horns playing simultaneously like that soloing, you will notice that, like in this piece, the trombone takes the bass part. The trombone takes the harmony of what the bass would play, and the clarinet takes a counter melody to the trumpet. The trumpet is always the lead horn in New Orleans music, and actually in any music, the trumpets are the lead horn, and usually the trumpet will not play as much harmony with the other horns as much as they will play the melody that is written. And so that's what we heard there. You also heard that there were no drums there. So who kept the time? Who kept the time was the banjo player. Banjo player kept the time. And in those days, sometimes there weren't any drums. Many times there was tuba, and then later on, what replaced the tuba was the bass fiddle or the bass violin. I rather refer to it as the bass violin that you don't put up under your neck. But the idea is that this music started to grow and instruments became interchangeable. So what replaced the clarinet at that period was Sidney Bechet, who played a great clarinet, but was over in France and saw, no, I'm sorry, not in France, but over in Great Britain, and saw a soprano saxophone and bought that and made that a thing. He was the first person to really play the soprano saxophone and popularize it, and we'll get to him later. And so I wanted to play this for you just to give you an idea of how this music has developed over the years and how the instruments have now, they sound different. And it's very important. I never want to leave out the vocalists. The first man-made instrument was the drum, but the first God-made instrument is the human voice. And so therefore the human voice imitates what is heard through the melodic instruments, and many times the melodic instruments imitate what is heard in the human voice. So I hope that answered your question about the soloing. And if it didn't, let me know, and I'll maybe send you some other examples so that you can sort of put them together and side by side so you see how they develop. Next week, we're going to continue, and I didn't get as much into improvisation as I want to, so we're going to go there, and also the idea of trading fours, which I wanted to cover today, but we're going to go there. But we're also going to look at the styles of music, the early styles of music. First, we're going to look at, next week, we're going to look at New Orleans, swing, bebop, and then hard bop. What you heard Art Blakey play, the song Moanin', that was a style that's referred to as hard bop. But we're going to play bebop. And then we're going to, on the last week, we're going to deal with modal music and avant-garde and fusion, which will bring us up to date. And after we sort of investigate these various styles of music, you're going to hear now music that is influenced by all of these styles. And now you hear it not only in rhythm and blues and fusion and rock, but you also hear it coming out of the Middle East. You hear it coming out of the Far East in Asia, India, and you see that there are so many similarities, and that jazz has influenced music around the world, but music around the world have also influenced jazz. And so we're very proud of the fact that this music sort of took shape here and originated here. And I also like to say that the drum kit is the only indigenous instrument, musical instrument, to America. All the other instruments came from Europe. The trumpet, the saxophone, piano, the violin, all of those instruments were already in Europe before they came over here. Okay, well, good. Well, thank you for being such a wonderful audience.